Welcome to Slow American English, the podcast for learners of American English. I'm your host, Karen Tolliver. This is episode number 61, Prohibition. Before we begin, I want to wish you a happy new year with health, wealth, and love in 2020. This is a very special episode for me because it is the 5-year anniversary of the podcast. I published the first episode of the podcast 5 years ago this month. I want to thank all my listeners that have made the podcast so popular. Also, you can now buy the 5th Slow American English Workbook. It's available on Amazon, just like previous workbooks. You can use all the workbooks either with the podcast or without it. Teachers can use them for listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Students can use them for self-study. For links to buy all the workbooks, visit slowamericanenglish.net. Note, as a special 5-year anniversary sale, you can buy any of the workbooks for a 25% discount from now until 15 February 2020. Visit slowamericanenglish.net for details. Become a website subscriber at www.slowamericanenglish.net. There are free transcripts, plus links to become a patron and to buy workbooks. Follow the podcast on social media. Click the icons on slowamericanenglish.net. Get information about American English idioms, podcast episode information, and more. Huge thanks to my Patreon patrons for pledging a small amount every month to keep the podcast going. Your contributions help pay for web hosting and other expenses. Without you, I could not produce this podcast every month. Thank you. If you are not yet a patron, please consider it. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/slowamericanenglish. Now for the podcast. Prohibition. From 1920 to 1933, it was illegal to make, sell, or transport alcoholic beverages in the United States. This ban was known as Prohibition, with a capital P. It is also sometimes called the Noble Experiment. The ban was made official by the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. Because the amendment did not specifically restrict people from having or drinking alcohol, a law called the Volstead Act was passed with additional regulations. There are several complicated reasons that prohibition was possible in the USA. First, because of the Industrial Revolution, cities became more crowded, which made life more stressful. People tried to relieve stress with alcoholic drinks. More bars and saloons opened, and more people, especially men, drank more alcohol. Religious movements in the 1800s, such as abolitionist and other campaigns that wanted people to act better, called for temperance. Temperance means to drink less alcohol and be more responsible to your family. Temperance leagues were formed, mostly by women. Religious organizations and temperance leagues said that bars and saloons were bad places. Factory owners wanted temperance so that their workers would be more responsible and less likely to get hurt on the job. Also, in the early 1900s, World War I caused a worldwide grain shortage. Therefore, grain was restricted from being used to make alcohol in the USA. Although people had good intentions for passing Prohibition, the results were terrible. People were unwilling to stop drinking alcohol, so they found ways to make their own alcohol and hide it from the government. There are several words that entered English directly because of Prohibition. Bathtub gin. Homemade illegal alcohol made in someone's bathtub. Bootlegging. Transporting illegal alcohol. People hid bottles in their boots under their trousers. Dry. Place with no legal alcohol. For example, a dry county means you cannot buy alcohol there. Moonshine. Homemade illegal alcohol, so named because people made it at night by the light of the moon. Speakeasy, an illegal bar. Still, short for distillery, a device for making alcohol. Of course, Prohibition was very unpopular, and the government did not have enough money to enforce the law. There was no longer any tax money from alcohol sales. Also, the stress of the Great Depression in the 1930s made people feel more like drinking alcohol. Organized crime gangs grew strong from the manufacture, transport, and sale of illegal alcohol. Al Capone, a powerful gang leader in Chicago, made about $60 million during Prohibition. The word gangster comes directly from this period in American history. Because of these and other political reasons, the 21st Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was passed that repealed or canceled Prohibition in 1933. However, states and local communities can still prohibit alcohol. In addition to vocabulary, there are other modern effects of Prohibition. For example, some states and counties are still dry. NASCAR racing developed because bootleggers modified their cars to be faster than police cars. In addition, when Prohibition was becoming less popular just before it was repealed, the Volstead Act was amended to permit the manufacture and sale of low-alcohol beer and wine, with only 3.2% alcohol. That is why traditional American beers, such as Budweiser, are so weak. That's the podcast for this time. Slow American English is written and produced by Karen Tolliver. Copyright 2020. All rights reserved. For a free transcript and to subscribe to the podcast, visit www.slowamericanenglish.net. You can also subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Theme music for this podcast is written and performed by S.W. Campbell and used by permission. Find more music by this artist at soundclick.com/SWCAMPBELL. This has been Slow American English. I'm Karen Tolliver. Thank you for listening.